Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Whalen, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and founder of Lions Not Sheep. Sean is known for his raw, unapologetic approach to life, business, and leadership. After building and losing millions, facing personal challenges, and rebuilding from the ground up, he's become a leading voice for men and women who are ready to take radical ownership of their lives. Through Lions Not Sheep, Sean challenges the idea of following blindly and invites people to lead themselves and their families, businesses, communities without apology. He's the author of How to Make Shit Happen, a no-nonsense guide to creating a life built on honesty, action, and accountability. Whether you follow him for his entrepreneurial insights, personal philosophy, or the way he likes to call it, Whalen stands for something most people are still too afraid to claim: personal responsibility, bold leadership, full throttle living, and telling the truth. Whalen, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast. And a quick note before we dive in. This is a special episode pulled from the 21-day Love and Abundance Challenge, and due to technical issues during the recording, the last 7 minutes of the conversation were unfortunately cut off. Even so, what you're about to hear is packed with value, insight, and real conversation, and I'm excited for all of you to have the opportunity to experience it. And with that, let's dive in.
My first time having a conversation with you. We've never met, so this is fun. I like this.
This will be fun. I'm excited.
So, getting into some foundational questions, your journey's been filled with extreme highs and lows. What was the single most defining moment that changed your perspective on love and abundance?
Oh man, I've had quite a few, but going back to probably 12 years ago, I was in a really dark place, and there was a night that really transformed my life where I didn't want to live anymore. And I had contemplations. You've seen the cartoons of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. And I had this night where I was truly contemplating why I was even here and whether or not it would be better if I wasn't. And in that night, I had a really profound experience. And I remember waking up the next morning after getting very close to taking my own life and realizing that the single thing that I thought when I woke up is that I don't want to die. I've been doing this. I want to build these things and speak with Jordan Peters to understand who I was or what I was or why I was here. And that night sent me on a radical journey to understand my purpose, why I'm here, why God continues to wake me up and give me an opportunity to live. And that love for myself, that love for life really transformed everything in my space.
I don't know what it is. So many people that just have so many beautiful and amazing things that they're capable of and that they ultimately end up accomplishing as time goes on have gone through a very similar moment. I had my own moment. I was a police officer, worked crime scene, saw a lot of people leave the planet, whether it was through their hand or the hands of another. I got to the place where I was in that same position. And the thing that stopped me was my dog, of all things, my German Shepherd, Chloe. Just all the other things that I had gone through personally, being able to see that and understand the aftermath of something like that. And I know this is a little bit heavy for everybody on a Sunday, but it's just so amazing that when you end up stepping back for a second, zoom out and allow yourself to assess the situation with a pure heart and then lean into God, what you're actually capable of doing in the long term, even though in that moment it seems like everything's falling apart and there's nothing that you can physically do to solve it.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something that is zoom out. That's been a frame for me for the last couple of years, is when I find myself in these really interesting experiences, when you zoom out and look at what seems to be this huge cataclysmic experience or reality, when you zoom out, like, it's really not that big of a deal. It's really not that big of a life altering thing. But I think we have a hard time zooming out. We're like trying to look at life through this pinhole. But when you zoom out and look at life in its entirety, it's quite profound. It's quite beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting because you always hear and you see it in everybody's social media page, right? This too will pass and this is temporary. But when you're in that moment, it's really hard to acknowledge and recognize that's actually the case.
Yeah, I agree.
So you've spoken about personal responsibility and taking control of life. What do you think is the number one mindset shift that people must go to for scarcity to true abundance?
Ownership is one of the most difficult things for people to do. You hear David Goggins and you hear Jocko and a lot of these other guys talking about extreme ownership. And it's not something that I was ever really taught. It's not something that I was raised understanding. It was always somebody else. It's the government, or it's my partner, or it's the market, or it's this, or it's this, or it's this. And as I got older, I realized that I'm 46 years old and I'm in the best shape of my life. I use fitness and my body as a reference point because I spent my whole life believing that a six-pack was for a guy who spent 6 hours at the gym, had great genetics, took a ton of steroids. And literally for 38 years, that was my belief system until I actually built the six-pack. And then all of a sudden it completely reframed everything where I was like, oh shit, that was just a story. And that was a story that I believed for so long until I actually did it. And I think that's what's really profound and really beautiful. And the reason that I love the body as a reference point, what I talk about with Lions Not Sheep, is it's only you versus you, right? I've had both my knees blown out. I've got all the injuries, spinal stenosis, blew out my bicep tendon 2 years ago, have said spine surgery. So I have all the excuses, but when I realized that it wasn't the market, it wasn't food, it wasn't genetics, it wasn't my parents, it wasn't a lack of education that kept me in this mindset. It was just simply I hadn't gone far enough yet. And so once I crossed that threshold and I built a six-pack, it was like, oh crap, like I did this.
Yeah.
I did. I ate the right things. I did the right things. I did the right workouts. I went far enough past my own stories. And then I rewrote that story. And I think something that's really difficult for people to do is to go far enough. And we quit when it gets hard because there's a reason that very few people have a six-pack. And that might not mean a lot to a lot of people, but it means something to me because it's one of the hardest things for you to do physically with your own body. And it translates to relationships and business and rearing children. And we quit when we start losing a little bit of money, or the business struggles, or we have this friction in our relationship in our home, and everything that we want is on the other side of that. And on the other side of that is the work that we must do as individuals. And so it's really simple in this day and age to blame things and to look at social media and blame him and blah, 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 blah. But when you step back and realize everything that I have in my life right now is my creation.
I love
Is
that.
that's ownership.
It's so funny because a couple of years ago, I would see your content pop up and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I'm just like, I'm totally like turned off from, because I've never seen this type of content, really wasn't looking for it. It wasn't something that interested me. Didn't know I even needed it at the time. And then it wasn't until I got injured, I had neck injury and a shoulder injury, ended up with bicep surgery myself around the same time that you did. I started paying attention a little bit more to your content and started diving into a little bit more. And then, like you said, picked up a book by Jordan Peterson and started diving into that. And it just opened up this journey to self-discovery that ultimately allowed me to create all this and be able to speak with you today about all this stuff. So it's what I'm trying to drive home is just that importance of the story that you tell yourself about yourself and your position in the world.
And truly what I found in coaching literally tens of thousands of people is it pisses you off first. The truth pisses you off.
Oh yeah.
And you see someone who's achieved something, like our innate ability and what's in our DNA is and it really pisses people off. That's why there's no middle ground with me. You either like me and appreciate it or you hate it, but you can't be in the middle, because what I have chosen to do is just speak my mind and speak my truth. Here's what I did. Here's how I did it. You had ups, downs, good, bad, the whole thing. And I think that the truth really pisses people off. But in that moment of being pissed off, there's an invitation.
Right.
Because you have nothing to do with my fitness. You have nothing to do with my family. The government doesn't. The president has nothing to do with my income. Right. And when you really understand that and own that, it's liberating. It's humiliating because when you take your shirt off and you realize you don't look good, you're like, right, I did this. You can't blame anybody. But that's also the ticket to the liberation, because as the saying goes, once the pain of the current reality becomes greater than the fear of change, that's when we change.
I will say, for all the guys out there, get your T checked. It's going to help you out a lot.
For sure.
You'll feel
100%.
a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that recently where it's like, couldn't figure it out, have a little Buddha belly going, what's going on, just feel crushed in spirit. And then figured out that my testosterone was 168. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
And then you get it checked and you get a little bit in you and you're just like, oh, just a little boost, just a little bit. And you're just like, oh, I feel pretty good. This is great.
Yep.
For the people who feel stuck, whether in relationships, business, or personal growth, what's the first step they need to break free?
Ownership. It's telling the truth. I've said this for years, and I'm never going to stop saying it. Tell the truth. Just tell the truth. If you're angry, say you're angry. If you're sad, say you're sad. If you don't know, say I don't know. And so many people have such a hard time telling the truth. And I get this because I spent most of my life lying. If I ask most people, are you a liar? No. Do you tell people the truth? No, because I don't want to piss off my pastor or my people or my mom or my dad or my lover. And so we don't tell the truth. And so it's like we think that we're telling the truth, but really what we're doing is we're just manipulating it so that it doesn't make other people uncomfortable. And this is why so many people stay stuck, is because they're not willing to tell the truth. Like when you hate your job or you hate the way you look, or you know what I'm saying? So many people are afraid to address truth. And this goes all the way back to that night that I woke up the next morning and I realized that I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the resources. I didn't know why I was so angry. And I started asking for guidance and leadership and help. And that's a really humbling, but also a very empowering place to be. And I think the very first thing that people need to do to change their life is tell the truth.
I'm really curious, what were some of the first tools that you found that were helping you in the various aspects of life?
Literally, the very first thing was asking for help. I was really angry, but I didn't know what I was angry at, right? And I didn't understand the anger. I'd been raised by a single mom. I was a go-go, build since my 20s. I was very successful, made millions of dollars, but I was just angry because I didn't know. And so that night that changed everything. After my divorce, I woke up and I was just like, I don't know how to not be angry. I don't know how to not be this driver or goer. And it was always like understanding balance to me as a myth, but I didn't understand the flip side of the coin. I wasn't raised by a dad who had softness. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know compassion and forgiveness and understanding. So the very first thing I did was I asked for help. I just started finding people and asking coaches and joining mentor groups and reading more books, trying to understand things that I didn't know. But I think that's also one of the blocks too, is that it's very vulnerable to ask for help. And most people won't do it, especially men. We just put your big boy pants on, be a man, just go figure it out. And most men don't ask for help. They just don't, because it's a sign of weakness. And in my opinion, it's actually the single greatest act of power that you can take. One of my favorite quotes is, the very best leaders have mastered the art of following, right? And so leaders understand that there has to be somebody ahead of the game than you, whether they're deeper in love, whether they're in better shape, whether they've made more money. And so stepping into that place of asking for help, asking for guidance is one of the most powerful things that you'll do.
Now, one thing you touched on there, and everybody is always searching for this, but it's that balance. Why is balance a myth?
Doesn't exist, man. It doesn't exist. The balance that you are looking for is the life that you create. And that's what I found over the last 10, 11, 12 years of my journey, is that there's always going to be ups and there's always going to be downs. There's always going to be a season. There's always, trees are going to die. They're going to come back. It's just this experience, right? And I think what people are looking for is that my body's good, my relationship's good, my business is good, my mindset is good, kids are good. And if any of these things is out of whack, we're not in balance. And so so many people are looking for this linear experience, this one-dimensional experience, and life isn't like that. I'm not the same dude I was a year ago, let alone 5 years ago. And so understanding that the life that I want is the life that I create. So if I'm stressed over here, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just I haven't figured out how to play that game yet. And so it's this evolutionary state of learning more, getting more tools, finding people that are ahead of you in the game. And that's really that quote unquote balance, because I mean, look at your body, for example, right? I'm getting older, seasons change, you get sick. We're never in this linear plane. There's always these ups and downs. And I think navigating that and understanding that, it takes away a lot of the shame. It takes away a lot of the guilt. You're like, oh, I look at these people online and they seem to have it all together, or this. Nobody has it all together.
They don't. Yeah.
Just certain people that have figured out that I'm building and creating the life that I want. And that's my quote unquote balance. Like, I love to take big risks. I've built multiple multi-million-dollar companies. That terrifies a lot of people. That's crazy. You're always risking. You're always whatever. But to me, that's the normal. I think it's more risky to go work a 9-to-5 job when someone could literally fire me in a second and all my income's gone. To me, that's more risky than going and building my own businesses, right? So that's that dynamic of what's the vision that I have? What's the life that I want to live? How do I want to look? How do I want to feel? What do I want in my bank account? What type of relationship do I want? And when you're building that, that's really where that quote balance comes in.
I like what you said. Haven't learned to play that part of the game yet. And that goes back to tools. And it's one of the things that I realized for myself is that I was living life in a way that was good for the type of work and system that I was operating in. But if I wanted to expand, change, grow, and evolve, I had to operate with a new set of tools. Where do you get that? You got to find a coach. You got to find a mentor. You got to find a podcast or a book or an Audible or something that you can get, that you can consume, that you can just Neo in the Matrix, right? You're plugging in and you're taking down all this information and you're like, boom, here I am. Now I'm going. And you got to deploy it in real time. And if you're not willing to do that, you will continue to suffer.
That's a perfect example. If you remember that scene where like he plugs in, I know jujitsu now.
Yeah.
I know my helicopter. That's literally, we're literally living the exact same reality.
Yeah.
We have the ability. You could literally you could go become a brain surgeon right now if you wanted to. You could go become a pilot if you wanted to. You could go become anything you want. And you just have to plug into that matrix and learn that system and do those things. And then you have it. I'm in the process right now of getting my helicopter pilot's license.
Nice.
I did not know how to fly a helicopter. I still don't know, but I'm learning. And at some point in time here in the next couple of months, I will literally be able to operate a helicopter on my own. I didn't know how to do that last year. I didn't know how to do that last week, but I soon will. And that's like that matrix scene where, what do you want to learn? I want to learn how to become this. I want to learn how to become that. And we all have that exact same reality and that exact same invitation opportunity right here, right now.
That's exciting though. What made you want to do that?
Dude, there's something cool. I've got a bunch of
It is
buddies
cool.
just to be able to get into a helicopter. I love private aviation. I love private jets and all this other stuff, but there's something about helicopter. I have a ranch that's about 100 miles away and it takes about 2 hours to drive to it, but it's only 20 minutes on a helicopter. And I'm like, how much cooler would it be to just transport myself there in 20 minutes in my own helicopter, land on my ranch, but being able to explore what you could. I live in the middle of the Rocky Mountains in Utah, and a couple of my friends have helicopters and we go fly a bunch. And I'm like, this is just, you can land wherever you want. And on these peaks that very few people have ever been to, you can land a helicopter and experience this completely different view of the world that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Now, I've only seen your ranch on Instagram, but dude, it is freaking gorgeous. And I love what you said here, out of necessity, right? So it's like, you're in that ranch, it's 2 hours to get to any location. You're just like, what's the next logical step? I guess I got to get my pilot's license. Let's go.
Yeah. That's one of my goals is I want to buy a helicopter this year.
You've been vocal about relationships and marriage. What do most men and women get wrong about love?
I think a lot of people I got married, I got remarried at 41 years old. And when you're getting remarried, and there's two different groups to speak to. There's the people that have been married forever, which is a small group of people. And there's people like me that have been divorced. And at least 50% of the people listening to this have been through divorce or are going through divorce because it's just the national statistic. I think what's really fascinating about love is how little we know about ourselves and how little we really truly understand who we are. And so we look to partners to try and create something that we don't understand ourselves. And I wasn't raised this way. I was raised, my parents split up when I was a young teenager, but I was raised by a hard man who got up before the sun came up, came home after the sun came down, worked, did his thing. And I never saw him cry. I never saw emotions. And I never understood any of that. And I think what a lot of people struggle with today is we look at relationships or we look at other people as like a way to soothe ourselves and to avoid that depth, avoid that darkness. And really a relationship is an invitation to more. It's an invitation to deeper. And I have a real belief system in that. And so I think a lot of people struggle today because deeper is scary. Deeper is exposing. Deeper is vulnerable, right? But that's also those tools that we're talking about to a new reality, to liberation, right? We all want to be seen, but if you're hiding, how can you be seen? We all want someone to hold our heart and love us, but if I have my heart chained up and locked up because I've been hurt before, no one's ever going to give me that opportunity. And so it's on us as divine individuals to create the love of ourselves and the love of who we are before we can love anybody else.
And this is why we talk so much about attachment styles, and a lot of my content is on that. But I tell people, use attachment styles only for you so that you can figure out who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you operate in relationships, how you connect with other people. And when you realize that, you'll spend less time trying to get someone and more time being curious about who they are and what type of
Right.
relationship you can co-create. And we don't talk enough about the co-creation aspect of our relationships. It's always, what can I get from them? Because they have something, they got it, I don't, and I need to acquire that from them. That's now back to a skill issue where there's some additional skills that we have to learn. And that's just in the area of relationships.
Totally agree.
For men who struggle to step into their masculine power, what's the fastest way to reclaim their confidence and leadership in a relationship?
How much time do we have? How deep down this rabbit hole do we want to go?
As deep as you want to go.
I'm a pretty blunt dude, and I can't stand a lot of these keywords and these hype words and these punch words: masculine, feminine, narcissism, gas. It's the introduction of social media has really screwed a lot of things up.
Unhelpful.
But I think what's really challenging for men, in my opinion, today, I've coached thousands of men, is really understanding that there is light and dark inside of us. There is masculine and feminine. There is the fire. There's the protector. There's also the little boy that loves and wants to be connected, right? And I think that's a really difficult thing, because a lot of us were raised, put your big boy pants on, solve the problem. You just blast through stuff, either that or you're wildly feminine and you're just extraordinarily passive. And so we're not that far removed from hunters and gatherers. But we're not that far. Yeah. And the truth is, it was just a couple generations ago that if I didn't go up into the mountains and kill an animal and bring it back to my family, we starved, or we were slaves to someone else who did. And that might sound really archaic to people, but that's what's in our DNA. Men are providers. They are producers. They are protectors. And I think in today's day and age, with social media and this masculine, feminine, there's a real war on this. And I say we as a collective of society, are trying to really water men down and make them these soft creatures that are very tender and loving and connecting. And that's hard for us, because in our DNA, we are protectors. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
We have to learn how to fight. We have to learn how to protect. And it depends who you talk to. But some people will tell you that's wrong. Some people will tell you that's bad. And I think what men are struggling with is, who the fuck am I? Yeah. How do I balance these two polarities? Because inside, I am this warrior savage, but I'm also trying to be this soft, gentle father and loving husband and things along those lines. And it's a real battle for a lot of men. It's a real struggle for a lot of men, because depending on who you talk to, they will say, this is bad and wrong, this is good. And now you introduce an insane amount of content in our face all day long of what a man should be. And what I have found is that the truth is what has brought me closest to who I am. When I went through my divorce, the very first post of mine that ever went viral, I'll give you a story on this. I went through a really gnarly divorce. I was really angry. There was a lot of just bitterness between my ex and I, and we're at an amazing place now, and she's a dear friend, and we're very connected. What I didn't understand was how to navigate both of these things. And so I did a post that ended up going viral. And this post, I told the truth. And it was me holding her new baby. She got remarried. And I talked about how big of a jerk I was in our divorce. I talked about how angry I was, how dark I was, how scared I was, how lost I was navigating this divorce. And 11 years ago, when this went viral, there weren't very many men talking about emotions and feelings on social media. There weren't very many men telling the truth about darkness and fear. And it ended up going viral. And I learned two things in this, and why it went viral and why literally millions of people resonated with it. Number one, it was my darkness. It was truth. It was me admitting that I didn't have all the answers, which most men, we just beat our chest. Yeah, I got it all figured out. And if we don't, then we just try and do that. And I realized that millions of people resonated with me telling my truth, which was I had light and dark in me. I had anxiety and I had fear, but I also had passion and I had excitement. And I think what really resonated with people is they understood that I'm not that different than them and they're not that different than me. But the second thing that I learned in that post is by me telling my truth and acknowledging what's going on inside of me, I felt better. And so I'm on a journey of wanting to feel better, just like everybody here is wanting to feel better. We all have that one commonality. We all want to feel better. We all do. Emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, physically. And so over the last 10, 11, 12 years, I've realized that as a man, me owning my truth is the single greatest power that I have. So when my buddies ask me, how you doing? Normally it's, yeah, I'm good, man. But if I'm not good, then I'm lying. And this is hard for some people to grasp. But I have friends that are dear friends, they'll call, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, today I want to burn everything to the ground today. I'm ready to blow up my entire world because it's true. That's what's in me right now. That's what's happening. And I can lie about it. And I think this is what most men are not willing to do. They're not willing to tell their women the truth. They're not willing to tell the market the truth. They're not willing to tell themselves the truth. And I think that's what's really blocking so much connection and so much liberation and why so many men are struggling today. More men are committing suicide now than ever before in the history of this country. Fact, statistic. Why? Is it because there's a lack of money? No. Is it because there's a lack of companionship? No. You can go down to your local bar and find companionship. So what is it? It's the fact that men have been emasculated and just shrunk down into this, don't be this, don't be this, don't say this, don't do this, this is right, this is wrong. And guys are going, what the hell? And I think the single greatest thing a man can do to own who he is, to understand both the masculine and the feminine, is to tell the damn truth. If you're having a good day, talk about it. If you're having a shitty day, talk about it. If you're afraid, talk about it. If you're excited, talk about it. Be real. That's the single greatest thing that any human will do, let alone man. And that, in my opinion, that's what true masculinity is, owning who the hell you really are.
I don't know that I can add anything to that other than read Meditations in the Daily Stoic, guys.
Oh yeah.
And that's for everybody. Because when we start talking about love and connection, you begin to realize very quickly that over the past 2,000 years, relationships have not changed other than the fact that we have social media and an iPhone, and yes, sir. And it creates these limits to connection that we really, truly desire. And we think that we're better and smarter than the ancients. And it's just not the case. Now we have all these different barriers to connection, which goes into I'm good is a separator from the connection that you truly desire. And we did this all the time at the department. Hey, man, what's up? How's everything? Hey, you good? Yeah, I'm good. And you keep on going. And you don't talk about the things that are important to you. And we start talking about officer suicide to make it a little bit more specific. That's where we can start to mitigate that risk to the individual, is by showing up, by being present, by acknowledging the other person, by being curious. You don't have to be their best friend, but recognize the signs and signals of somebody who's struggling.
Can I add to that really quick?
For sure.
We talk a lot about how to show up for other people. And you want like a real nugget? Like, we can go down the rabbit hole of this one. How the hell do you show up for yourself? And this is what I've learned. My own personal experience is I can talk about how to help him and her. How the hell do I help myself? How is it that I get to a place where my masculinity is my truth, right? And so if I'm asked that question, how you doing? I have to be the leader. I have to be the example. I talk about this with my children all the time. I've got an 18-year-old son, a 15-year-old son. I am the standard. I am the example. I am the man they look to for this, which is why when I take my shirt off and I'm shredded, I'm showing my boys this reality. When they ask questions and I tell them the truth, there's so much emphasis on how to help everybody else. But the truth is, we're not well. We're not capable of telling our truth. So instead of looking outward, let's figure out who the hell we really are. And that's the scariest place for people to go. That's the scariest place for people to explore, is inside ourselves. And so I love this notion that we have of like how to show up for other people. But the truth is, we're trying to get people that can't show up for themselves to show up for other people. And that's where I think this perpetuation of suicide and sickness and disease is getting worse. It's the statistics. We're fatter than ever. We're broker than ever. We're more miserable than ever. We're on more prescription drugs than ever. Why? It's because we're constantly looking outside, and the liberation and the freedom is inside. And so for me, I want to be that example for my children. I want to be that example for my tribe and my people. And I must do that above everything else. And this is called selfishness. Call it selflessness, call it whatever you want. But if it's when you're on an airplane and the masks fall down, what's the first thing they tell you to do? Help the old lady in row 27? Go back and give it to the kids back over here? No, they say the very most important life-saving thing is to put your own mask on first. If you don't, then everyone dies. But this is, again, where most of us struggle. We're like, oh, I'm going to help my kids. I'm going to help my family. I'm going to help them. I'm going to help all these people. Meanwhile, we're suffocating because we have no air. You got to put your own mask on first.
Yeah, we always think we know better in that process, right? Just a huge barrier to, this is what you should do. No, I'm going to do this because I know better. Okay, go do that. It's not going to end well for you. Another piece of that is, again, it's know yourself. When you know yourself, you're going to feel more capable, competent, and confident in who you are as a person and how you show up into the world. People are going to respond to that version of you because they have to. And it might be a new version. Maybe you've never done this before. You're trying to embody like this future version of you, and it takes time to get there. But then people will realize that you're making this impact in your sphere of influence. You are the ripple in the pond, that when you are capable, competent, confident, other people observe that. And Ed Milet says it's caught, not taught. So they start observing you, and then you inspire them, and then they get curious and start asking questions. Although at first they'll reject you, but then they usually come around a year later to say, hey, how'd you do that thing? I'm curious.
I've had over 50,000 people join my coaching group in the last 10 years, and I've never run a single ad. I've never marketed it or promoted it. And 99.999% of people that join say exactly what you just said. They say, I've been following you for fill in the blank period of time, 6 months, 8 months, 2 years. And then something finally triggered. Something finally got me to be like, okay, I want more. I want to join his coaching group. And to me, that's why social media is so big and important, and why I've used it so much is because I've been able to shine my light, tell my story, share with people my world, and they watch and they see, and then they observe, and they're like, damn, he was here, and now he's here. He was doing this, and now he's this. He was Captain Dad Bod. Now he's shredded. He's 46. I'm 46. I'm fat. He's not. What the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden there's this click inside your brain or your heart or your soul where you're like, okay, I want more. I'm in. Like, let's do this. Let's go on this journey. It's powerful.
And if you guys aren't following Sean Whalen Reels, you should probably go do that because he drops a lot of knowledge on you in those.
Thank you.
Moving on to abundance and success mindset. Many people chase money thinking it'll bring happiness. What's the truth about money and fulfillment?
Money's freedom. Money's freedom. I was not raised with money. I was raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, and I just remember seeing how much she struggled, and I didn't want her to struggle, and I didn't want to struggle. And nobody taught me about money. Nobody taught me about economics or capitalism. And money, if you raise it in a religious environment, money's bad. No, it's not. It's actually not. Because if you truly want to help God, if you want to go spread the word, it takes money. Hey, you want to go help the starving kids in Africa, who's going to buy the plane ticket and the food to feed the kids? So my mindset is significantly different in the sense that I can do more of God's work the more money I have. And if people want to challenge me on this, let's just open up the good book. The parable of the talents. Who is the faithful servant? Who is the slothful servant? The slothful servant took the talents, the coins, and just buried it and said, I don't want to risk this, lose this. Here, Lord, I'm going to give it back to you. The faithful servant, the one who was given more, was the one who multiplied it. And talent is money. Let's just call it what it really is. It triggers a lot of people, especially if you don't have any. He was given more because he multiplied the talent, because he did good with it. So for me, shifting that mindset into abundance, it will separate you from people. It will remove you from peer groups and social groups. And at the end of the day, I want to do as much good as I can in this world. And I can tell you, leaving $100, $500, $1,000 tips randomly for people at dinner is an incredible opportunity. And it comes because I have created abundance. Does it mean that I'm constantly going like this? No, there's seasons of up and down, and businesses are up and down and the whole thing. But I am focused on creating the most abundant life that I can because it allows me to do more of God's work.
I love that. Instead of service to self, it's service to others.
Yeah. This is everything I have is God gave me this. Like he gave me the talent. He gave me this voice. He gave you this voice. He gave you this podcast. Everybody watching here, I don't know if you're watching on a cell phone or a computer. It's a gift. Like he gave you this electronic thing to watch these two dudes talking. Like it's all a gift. Like he's given you all of these things and we're sitting back like trying not to mess up in life, trying not to make any mistakes. And he's sitting here going, go, do, fuck things, break some things, learn how to be better. You know what I mean? And look at the scriptures. I love the scriptures. I love the Bible. And there's so many stories about these exact things. And that's what I love about life right now is I want to push all of the levers. I want to touch everything. I want to experience it all. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a gift. This day is a gift. Being able to build an abundant lifestyle and an abundant life is truly the single greatest way that I can honor the gift that God has given me of being alive today.
I love that you brought up faith because I started my own journey a few years back, and I've got Oswald Chambers' Utmost for His Highest is one book, and then another is Jesus Calling. So for those of you who might not have stepped into a relationship with Christ yet, and you're looking for something to ease into it, these daily devotionals are extremely informational and helpful for you. And I'm curious, Sean, how did your journey begin?
Oh boy. I was born and raised Catholic. I was Catholic for 15 years. I was an altar boy, did the whole thing. My mom was Mormon. My dad was Catholic. And when my parents split up, we went with my mom. And so I was raised Catholic in Catholicism and the whole deal. And then we joined the Mormon church when I was a teenager. And then I went on a Mormon mission and spent about 12 years in the Mormon faith in the Mormon church. And after my divorce, I went on a journey. And Jesus went out into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And so I was an ordained minister for 2 years. And so I decided to close all of the books and go build a relationship with Christ. And not that they're bad or wrong. Look, the Bhagavad Gita, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, there's so much wisdom and knowledge. The Septuagint, the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's so much brilliance out there and so many things. Like I'm reading right now, Conversations with God, which is a brilliant book, great book. And there's so many amazing words to just connect you to divinity and open you up, right? But I've always had a deep belief in God. I've had this voice in me and the spirit in me for a long as I can remember, all the way back to being a young child. And as I've journeyed out there and really started to explore the world and try and build a relationship with Christ, that's really where my faith deepened, because I didn't want to read what other people said about him.
Right.
I wanted to know who he was. Who was the guy? The man, not the savior of the world, not the dude in the Garden of Gethsemane, but who was this guy? What was he like? Like, I imagine that I would have liked him. Like I would have hung out with him and we'd maybe smoke some cigars and drink some wine. I don't know. Heal the blind, walk on the water. I'm not really sure, but I wanted to build a relationship with him and understand him. And as I went down this path over the last 10, 11 years, I've really grown an incredible relationship with him and understanding that he's very much like me and very much like you. And he was a human and he had interactions with people and he hung out with the sinners. He hung out with the people. He hung out with the harlots. He was not a dude of riches and all of these other things. He was a simple man, but he was also a freak. He was a weirdo. He walked town to town and sat on rocks and shared these weird messages where people are like, what the hell did he just say? What? That doesn't make any sense. I don't get that. Like people are lowering down their sick and he's healing them. And it's what in the hell's going on with this guy? And I love that about him. I love that about him. And that's why, to me, I feel like today, the invitation for us to shine that light is so beautiful. And I have a lot of favorite quotes, but one of my favorite quotes is, live your life so that those who know you but don't know Christ want to know Christ because they know you. And I took that on as a challenge. Like, I want to live my life so that people who don't know Jesus want to know Jesus because they know me. And it might not make sense. And people say, how do you swear and talk about God in the same sentence? I'm like, I don't know, but I do. And it's powerful. And I love it. And I'm connected to it. And I love the conversations literally with God and with people around this. And so I have a very deep faith and connection with divinity. I'm not really religious at this point in my life. I don't necessarily connect with one dogma or one particular faith, but I am a very spiritual man and of deep faith.
I've been in that place where for the past few years now searching for that relationship, and I've spent so much time reading and journaling. And I'm curious, I see you post scripture all the time. Do you also journal on that?
I do a daily, I've got my daily words that I
Yeah.
write. Also do we call it stacking, something that I learned from my dear friend and mentor, Garrett White. And so every morning I read the scripture and then we stack with it and we talk about what we learned. And it's a literal conversation with God where God's, I'm trying to talk to you through these words and it's extracting this and it's really powerful, but it's love the connection, man. He's talking to all of us every day. The question is, do you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear? And so my entire life is around building ears to hear and eyes to see, so that when I'm driving down the freeway and there's that little nugget on a billboard or a thing or bumper sticker, I'm like, I got it. I hear you. I see you. You know what I mean? And so that's my entire thesis in life, is having the eyes to see and the ears to hear.
It's so interesting because as I'm reading, I might not be understanding exactly what I'm reading, but there's always something that pops up for me that it's usually like a page long. And I always question, I'm like, where's that coming from? What is this? Because it's inspired by this, but I don't fully understand this, but it's coming out on the page as something that I completely fully understand. And it's
Yeah.
useful information. I actually build out content using that. And
Yeah.
it's really cool that it just comes from what feels out of nowhere.
Yeah. It comes from somewhere. It doesn't come out of nowhere. We both
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. But it's
Powerful.
just interesting that it's like through the hand and there it is.
Yeah.
Sean, as we come to the close, I want to focus a little bit on legacy and impact. What do you want your legacy to be when people look back on your life? What do you want them to say about Sean Whalen?
My legacy is my children. It's not things. I want my 3 children to radiate the love that I have. I want my 3 children to be as fiercely independent and creators of their own world and their own life as I am. My legacy is not apartment complexes and ranches and money. This is something I learned many years ago as I became a father. And last week, 10 days ago, I became a grandfather.
Congratulations.
My daughter, my oldest, thank you. My oldest daughter, who's 22 years old, had a baby. I became a grandfather, and it changed. It opened up, it unlocked a whole new level of love for me, which has been amazing. But I want to know that when I leave this life, I took the light that God gave me and I passed it on to people. And that legacy to me is more important than anything else. I don't want to leave my kids money. I want to empower my kids to create wealth. I don't want to leave my kids these long, arduous letters of what my testimony really was. I want to leave them with countless experiences and stories that they can recall with me of love and connection. And so my entire world is building the reality that, like, my legacy will be leaving 3 children that want to empower their children. And that ripple effect going forever is really, in my opinion, how you change the world. So to me, legacy is I always say this, I say this especially to a lot of the men and the parents. If you're a parent, listen to this, show them, don't tell them. Like, show your children a healthy mom and a healthy dad. Show your children how to create wealth. Show your children you praying and studying and communing with God. Show your children conflict resolution. Show your children optimism. Show them your tears. Show them your excitement. Show them when you get your ass kicked and you're laying flat down on your face. Show them life. Show them everything. And what we have is a culture and people that are telling our kids, go dream while you live a nightmare. Eat your vegetables and go be healthy while you're obese. You can be anything you want in the world, son, daughter, but I'm over here slaving away at a job that I hate. I'm a very firm believer that my legacy will be showing my children a father and a man who extracted every ounce of beauty, love, experience out of this life, and empowering them to do it by them their single observation is watching me.
Damn. What's next for you, Sean? What's the big vision you're working on right now?
Oh man, I'm actually working on smaller visions. I'm shrinking down my visions, to be totally honest with you. I've spent a long time, big visions, big things, and becoming a grandfather and having this ranch and having a lot of these other experiences that I have been having. I'm 46 years old and I'm realizing that the biggest thing that I can do is live in the simplest moment. The biggest thing that I can do is live in a singular moment and experience the deepest, most profound love. So I'm actually shrinking down a couple of my companies and simplifying and streamlining some things, because it's not about how much wealth I can create. It's how much experience I can have. It's how much love and appreciation I can have. So the big thing for me right now is simplifying, is creating the life that I want to have, where I can spend as much time as I can with my grandson and my daughter and my sons. That's the big thing for me right now.
What's the plan for the ranch?
Put it in the trust and leave it to my family for hundreds of years. Experience it, love it. We have 500 acres and it's a very spiritual place. The second I stood foot on it, I was like, this is mine. I have to have this. God put me here. Wasn't what I was looking for. Wasn't in the location I was looking for, and brought me to that spot. It's a really great place, and being there with my family, my children, riding four-wheelers, shooting guns, eating hot dogs over the fire, and building all of these cool experiences. It's like my sole focus.
It's awesome. You get to run animals on it at all?
Yeah, we have some cattle coming in the spring, so we have our own beef.
Hell yeah.
We'll have all of our own animals and all of our own stuff, and it's been an amazing experience to take this raw dirt. Nothing existed. There was no fencing, there was no roads. Like, I visioned the whole thing. It was just raw dirt, 500 acres of raw dirt. And so everything that's there has come out of my mind and my work. And so it's been really fun. It's been really cool and very challenging.